Hey everyone, I just saw the new movie Project Hail Mary yesterday and wanted to give you my thoughts hot off the press here, assuming I get this video out in the next century. The movie is, of course, based on the novel by Andy Weir, a pretty big name right now in mainstream science fiction who also wrote The Martian. I've not read either of these books, but I did see The Martian and thought it was worth a watch. That's the extent of my experience with this author's material, though, so I was intrigued to see this new film starring Ryan Gosling. The story follows Ryland Grace, a scientist with unconventional ideas that have resulted in him being somewhat ostracized in his field. He now works as a school teacher but is approached by Eva Stratt, played by Sandra Hüller, to help tackle a problem the world is aware of but hasn't solved. A strange material or organism is slowly sapping the sun of its power, and humanity will eventually suffer from this. What the public doesn't know is that the process has been accelerated and a solution must be found as soon as possible or the population is doomed. Grace is recruited to figure out what this material is, if it's alive, and why it needs the sun's energy. The movie begins with Grace waking up on a space station with little idea of how he arrived there, but once he starts putting the pieces together and resumes his mission to save Earth, he also encounters an alien entity that will completely change his life. Throughout the journey, there are a ton of big plot points and lots of things happening, and we're also treated to flashbacks that fill in the blanks of how Grace got to this point where he really is humanity's last chance at survival. It's a pretty ambitious script that results in a runtime just over 2.5 hours. So what did I think of the movie? Well, based on what I'm interested in and what I hope to see from whatever kind of movie I'm watching, this won me over in the end. The first half of the movie did not endear itself to me, but once things start rolling and Grace's alien buddy warms up to our hero, the film finally starts paying dividends, albeit a bit sporadically. This is a pretty tropey story that doesn't do a whole lot you haven't already seen. If you're familiar with E.T. and basically any disaster movie ever, especially the ones that involve space, there's not much new here. The science bolstering the plot is pure fantasy entertainment, but that's fine by me. Just don't mistake this for fictional but convincing and detailed scientific world building like you see in books like The Three-Body Problem or Children of Time. What's here is perfectly serviceable and not at all unserious, though. You can buy in for the sake of investing yourself in the plot and characters. Ryan Gosling is good here. A friend of mine who saw the film with me said Gosling was a good choice because he can be funny, but he can also act. He used Ryan Reynolds as a contrasting example, and I agree with what he said. Ryan Reynolds would be great in about half of this movie, but you need someone that can also act through a character's torment or confusion, sadness, loneliness, all those things. And that's a dimension a more versatile actor like Gosling can provide. James Ortiz voices the alien, who I don't want to reveal too much about, but I thought the performance was fine. Sandra Hüller is so much better than this material, but she does a fine job as the stoic commander of everything going on, trying to bring the entire world's scientific communities together to make this mission even happen, let alone succeed. We only see her character in spurts, and not enough in my opinion, but given that she never enters space where most of the movie takes place, she can't always be on screen for us to learn more about her. That's an issue I did have with the movie, which is how much it tries to do. I would prefer closer to a 2-hour runtime for a movie like this, but it gets inflated here because there's so much ground the movie thinks it has to cover. It's not a terribly long runtime, and nothing in the movie is an obvious cut candidate. It's fairly cohesive, but I would argue the movie seems to be ending 3 different times, and many characters as well as a couple of plot points are barely touched on. It seems like we keep getting another 20-minute chunk where it feels like the creators can't stop extending the plot and shooting more scenes. I'm sure all of this is in the book, but eventually you can almost hear someone saying, "We could end it here, but what if this happened? And then this happened?" It's strange because, again, I don't feel like anything in the film is superfluous, I just don't know if we needed all of it. What turned me off right from the beginning of this movie is the purposeful humor. I know this is the trend now, but I'm sorry, it sucks. The movie tries so hard to be humorous when it doesn't need to be. Characters get into very odd dialogue exchanges solely for the sake of jamming in some vanilla-ass joke that doesn't even belong. For a large stretch of the runtime, everything has to be funny. For example, we can't have a serious discussion among world leaders about the fate of the entire planet without a whoop there it is joke. Why? Like, you tell me, guys. I don't understand this aspect of contemporary storytelling. It's very trite and feels like the movie wants your permission to just be an Old Spice commercial instead. Thankfully, the movie starts breaking away from that formula and tries instead to be a compelling story with some real emotion. Once that happens, we get much more consistent quality scene to scene, and I ended up welling up with tears a few times by the end, which I see as proof that I'm not an unfeeling monster all of the time. Really, though, if you enjoyed E.T. as much as I always have, you'll like this movie. It's also just a fun ride, which, to be fair, is probably its main objective despite any criticisms I might have. I wouldn't use the turn your brain off stigma here at all. This is a solid movie that I think suffers a bit from doing a little too much and trying, like so many films do now, to be overtly funny when it doesn't have to be. That's not to say there aren't some funny jokes, they're just buried under an avalanche of bland and unnecessary ones, and the movie gets better and better every time it takes the training wheels off and doesn't rely on comedy filler. The movie mostly does what it sets out to do. If you want escapism, it's there. It's also a good sci-fi story you don't have to stress yourself out over while watching. It does a great job of tugging on the old heartstrings too, like I said. Again, it's nothing you haven't seen before, but for the most part, it's a good mix of some reliable and effective storytelling techniques. You'll have fun here. I just wish some of these movies would have more confidence in themselves instead of bolstering the real stuff with cheap laughs, but I digress. Project Hail Mary was a good time despite being a little long and goofy for its own good. I can't wait until we can break away from some of the more formulaic elements here, but I was mostly entertained along the way and had a good time at the theater. Have you seen the movie? What did you think of it? Are you an Andy Weir fan? Have you read the books? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I really hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.